Welcome to Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. I am Elmer Renton,
And I'm Megan Hall.
and we are the hosts of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. Welcome back for round two, Megan.
Round two, no joke. So yeah, so funny. We're about to redo a video that we had previously done a few days ago, exposing the dirty secret of legal weed, LA Times' article. And I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that our last video, the audio was compromised. And on top of that, Al's 2-hour video that he did that goes into detail about the dirty secret of legal weed was taken down for about 4 to 6 hours and then finally got back up. So we are hitting something that people do not want us talking about. So yeah, we're gonna do it again, and hopefully the audio works. Al, you ready?
Yep, definitely. Awesome. So, yeah. So the Bombshell article, exposing the cannabis industry, specifically the legal cannabis industry in California, was released, through LA Times article in conjunction with Weed Week. And what was the name of the reporters?
So yeah, big shout out to Paige St. John and Alex Harperin, I do believe. Yeah.
Yeah, Harper. And so they did a awesome job and did like an in-depth, article exposing so much. Like it's just such a bombshell that we just have to get this information out to the public.
Correct.
So basically, like there was illegal chemicals found in the cannabis products, on the shelves of cannabis dispensaries. They actually went out to different dispensaries all across California, and they tested 42 products. 25 of them came back contaminated, and some of them with over 24 pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides. 24 different ones, and like Backpack Boys, Steezy, West Coast Cure, some of the
Big
biggest
players.
brands in California.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. It is crazy. And now, Al, I've known you for over 8 years, and you have been talking about this for a long time. This isn't something new, but the fact that LA Times has written about this and it's the mainstream is able to see it now. Can you elaborate on how important this is for us to know this information right now? And that basically we are at war. The cannabis industry is at war with having to figure out what we're doing if we're smoking poison, pesticides. Please elaborate for us.
Yeah, for sure. So the cannabis dispensaries, they were originally, medical, just for people with medical conditions, and then now in California, it has recreational, etc. But many people that go to the dispensaries go there, number one, thinking that they're getting clean material because it is tested and it is supposed to be
Right.
completely pesticide free, and then most of those people are consuming the cannabis for a medical reason, either something severe from cancer on down, or things like anxiety, stress, depression, etc. And if they are taking these cannabis products to get better, and they have pesticides in them, it can make them worse, right? And,
Right.
and give them not just make their condition worse, but give them other conditions that they have to battle against. So
Which they're probably taking the plant to heal those conditions, but they're full of pesticides, so they're actually making themselves worse.
yes, definitely. And the other end of that too, something that I was made aware of is I thought that pesticides were not allowed in any of the cannabis products in that are on the shelves in dispensaries in California, or across the United States, and that's not true. There are allowable limits of pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, and heavy metals in the cannabis products. So they secretly changed their stance because it was too costly and too time consuming to do the tests on every single one of those products. So they just instead of making it like 46 different products that are completely banned, they made it 21 products, and then like 45 other ones where there's allowable limits. So 45 pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides there are allowable limits of in cannabis that's on the dispensary shelves, regardless of this article here.
What other consumer items are allowed to have this many chemicals and pesticides?
Food.
Right, but it's
but
like
but
it's
like
tested.
But yeah, so some of the chemicals found in the cannabis, though, like that's what you're asking probably,
Right.
is some of the chemicals are not allowed at all in anything in the United States, in Europe, all over the world. And then there are some that are not allowed in any other parts of the world, but they are allowed in like micro amounts in the United States, but not allowed in cannabis. You know.
What?
One of the big deals, though, with this article was the fact that they exposed the fact that the cannabis companies are skirting the regulations by not using the ones that are not allowed, but they're
Hmm.
using other ones that aren't regulated. They're
Copy
not
that.
tested for. So they're using like cheap Chinese knockoffs, and and some of the products from these Chinese knockoffs will have 10 pesticides or more in the one jug. And that's
Right.
why we're getting so many different pesticides, in one product.
And what I asked last time was, what the fuck bug are they trying to keep us from? Like, what are they? Why all these pesticides and chemicals? Like, why? Which we'll get into in a second. I wanted to backtrack a little bit and ask you, where did we go wrong? And then we'll dive into the regulatory failures. Back in 2015, the wild west of cannabis, when everything was kind of just becoming legal and we were able to buy, and it wasn't so harsh, and a lot of companies, mom and pop companies, were coming up. There was a lot
Mhm.
of small companies who had to go through lots of tests and regulations, and they still were worried about passing. Where did we go wrong? Like, right now, we're in this weird scenario where these pesticides and chemicals are allowed. It wasn't allowed before. Why?
Yeah. So when it first came out, there was mostly the mom and pops,
Hmm.
in the industry, and they did a lot of clean, cannabis and clean vapes and clean oils and things like that, and they were really proud of it, like 100% flour, extracted and all this kind of stuff. But as they were slowly, bought out or driven out, then the bigger players, they found ways to, to skirt, the regulations and things like that. And that's how I just mentioned, by using chemicals that aren't tested for, or are not regulated for. So they could say we're following all the regulations, even though you're finding pesticides and herbicides like 2 dozen, and some of them being 60, 100, and in one case over 2,000 times the detectable limit. It's crazy. you know
It is.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, just the mom and pops, they got moved out, and the bigger players come in, and those bigger players, they're beholden to stakeholders, because they're like Steezy. It sounds like a funky little company or whatever, but they're owned and managed by a holding group, by an
Right.
investment group. And so there's nothing nice about that. They care about the bottom line money. And you could just see the way everything is in the world right now. The
Right.
corporate entities don't have the consumer's best interest at heart.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, I rewatched your 2-hour video, which I do highly suggest. And I took about 3 pages of notes that I did want to go through with you again, and really kind of capitalize on some of the questions that I didn't get to ask last time. But the regulatory failures by the California Department of Cannabis Control.
Uh-huh.
They have ultimately, from your video, they have failed in monitoring or addressing contamination levels. Who are they, first off? Who is this cannabis control department? Who are these people?
So the Department of Cannabis Control, they're like the branch of the California government that oversees like the cannabis, all of the cannabis industry, right?
Okay.
Like, so all the other regulatory agencies, like the pesticide agencies and etc., that have tried to do things to help regulate, that they have no say in anything. And they make recommendations, and they're ignored. But for whatever reason, the person that runs that Department of Cannabis Control, she's sort of like Newsom is as a governor.
Gotcha.
Just like pretending that they're doing all this great stuff, and when they're doing public speeches, they're saying how concerned they are, but they are doing absolutely nothing, like zero. There are zero regulatory processes going on, other than they made the regulations in 2018, and zero has been done since then except for collecting paychecks.
Copy that. Okay. And they're technically supposed to be checking for the pesticides and all of that, right?
Yeah, that's their job, is to make sure that the um, products that are sold to the public, to the consumer, is clean,
Copy.
right? And that's their whole purpose behind that agency. And it even states that, like, if there's if there's two or three or four different things that have to be looked at, then the number one thing is consumer safety over everything
Right.
else.
Right. That makes
And
sense.
it even says it in their guidelines and bylaws, and they just totally ignored that. Like, there's been whistleblowers, and people sending in information about, like, faulty products for years, and then most recently, like, there's two companies, two labs that sent out a bunch of just bombarded them. And it took from 2016, where it was voted in, 2017, where it was made legal recreational, all the way to 2023, the end
What?
of 2023, before
Okay.
the first product was taken off the shelves, right? Like,
Yeah.
it took that long. And then there was another one in early 2024, just a few months ago, that was taken off, and that was just because of the noise that was being brought by those two um, labs, and then also Weed Week and the LA Times.
Did we vote these
It's
people
crazy.
in? Did we vote
No,
these people in?
no, not at
Okay.
all.
How did they get their role?
They're just given jobs. It's all like behind the scenes,
Okay.
whatever.
Okay. Let me ask you this: for them being responsible for testing and knowing the pesticides or all the poisons and toxins in this flour, do they have their own lab? Can't they test for this stuff themselves?
They have their own lab, but
Okay.
it is not equipped or regulated to test for pesticides. They could test for potency, like, percentage of THC, CBD, whatever, and they could test for mold. They only have those two capabilities, and they do not have the capability, or the certifications to test for pesticides. So that they don't have
That
the
doesn't make any
equipment,
sense.
and they said they were getting it, but as of June 2024, which is, we are in June 2024, they still do not have the testing equipment to test for pesticide contamination. So how could they even know if it's there?
Right. Exactly. Okay. Good to know. Let's dive into industry malpractices. And from your video, I took some notes and I have you saying brands cut corners due to high tax rates and operating costs. Brokers source bad contaminated weed with chemicals to save money. Can you elaborate on that more?
Yeah. So the brands, the taxes, number one. They're in California for recreational are about 28%. So if a person buys $100 worth of cannabis in a dispensary, they're going to spend $128. So it's very expensive, and it's also very hard for the companies to make a profit, unless you're doing really huge volumes. So that causes them to want to cut corners. And they do that by using pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides that aren't regulated for. So they could say that they're following the regulations by not using these certain pesticides, but they're using these other ones that are either just as harmful, or in some instances even more harmful than the ones that are regulated for. So and they feel good about it. They feel they are doing the consumer justice. But they're actually harming the consumer.
So forget about the integrity of the plant. It's about profit. It's about not wasting any of what they're making and trying to find a way to get it out there, working around the state's rules and regulations, using the pesticides and the chemicals, but just using the one that maybe would be illegal in Colorado, but California has different regulations, so they're just moving the playing cards a little bit. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, yeah. Also remember that the regulatory standards were created in 2018 and never enforced and never updated. Right. So as far as the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, the chemicals, the heavy metals that are allowed or banned from being able to, to be having the cannabis products, they were created, the standards, but never enforced and never updated. So there's new chemicals that have been brought to market since 2018,
Oh, okay.
and they're not even mentioned, they're not tested for, and you could use those technically and be within California standards, right? So with the article, they used what the ones that are being regulated by California standards, and then there's also ones that are that they um, for tobacco federally, that because tobacco keeps up with the updated pesticides and stuff like that. So they're using, like, when they say that this particular insecticide has 2,000 times the detectable levels. Some in some instances it's for the tobacco and not for cannabis, because it's not even regulated for cannabis, but it's poisonous. It's like deadly, if inhaled.
So it's roughly about 7 years behind, no updates. We're getting probably hit with lots of chemicals that we're going to find out later are majorly poisonous and will do massive harm to the consumer, but they're just kind of dragging their feet on updating anything.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. Okay. Noted. Noted. And again, that's why I'm saying that this is a war on cannabis. This is not for the true holistic cannabis lovers that see this plant as medicine. We're being attacked. We're being attacked. Pay attention, please. Like, we need to kind of band together on this so that we're aware and that we're not allowing us and our loved ones to be inhaling poison. All right. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Did you want to say something?
Yeah. So it says up in here, there's an estimated 5 million Californians that consume cannabis products in any given month. So that's 5 million people that are at risk of contamination, right? So and they're thinking that their products are pesticide free, herbicide free, fungicide free, because they're buying them at the dispensary. So yeah, it's just a direct attack against the consumer, because these guys, like we mentioned earlier, they don't realize that there are allowable limits of pesticides in the cannabis. It's crazy.
It is. It's so disturbing. I have not been able to process it in a way that I really know what to do. So I'm just glad that we're getting this out there. Can
Yeah.
we dive into the the lab accountability?
Yeah, for sure. So everybody pushes it off, on each other. So the brands, and remember, we're talking Stizzy, West Coast Cure, and Backpack Boys. The five biggest brands had like over 10 different and chemicals in their products, and at levels at hundreds of times the amounts. So but they're saying that it's not our fault um that our products that have chemicals in them are on the shelves, because it's the lab's fault, because they're the ones that certified it and said it was okay, right? So in the past, to go back to the question earlier too, is
Yeah.
the labs, like that were around at the beginning, they had integrity, just like the mom and pop growers and manufacturers. They had integrity. They bought millions of dollars worth of equipment that were super accurate, and they were giving out passing grades when they deserved it, and failing grades when they deserved it.
Right.
And just like you would think, and that's what was going on. People had to really be on their game. But that with the bigger brands, as they started coming in, and getting more powerful, they were just saying, hey, like, we go to this lab and they fail us, we're never going back. So they just they put a ban on certain labs, and then other labs came in and they had like marginal equipment that isn't really accurate, but they just they'll give passing grades to anybody, either because they're paid off or because they want to get a bunch of business and just be known for that. And those are the labs that are thriving and that are in the industry now, and the other good actors they were driven out, basically.
So labs are taking bribes to give good lab results for money.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Again, no accountability, no integrity.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So like, so all, yeah, yeah. So again, all the good actors driven out, bankrupted, etc. And then and then a lot of them, some of them will just leave because they don't want to be around
Yeah,
that those bad practices either.
right,
Just like during COVID, when everything was shut down, like a bunch of the people in the FDA left, a bunch of
right,
the big wigs because those were the ones with heart, and then they were
right,
replaced with people that were evil, and that's the
right,
same thing that happened here. The good labs went away, and they were replaced with bad labs that will they'll give passing grades on tainted product, just
right.
for money.
We're talking about, and I think it's important to reiterate the consumer safety and how in danger we are. Whether you're taking the plant for medical reasons or recreational reasons, it doesn't matter. You're inhaling poison, and you should be fully aware of what you're ingesting at all times. And right now, it's looking like brands are not taking accountability. And it goes deeper than the brands. Like Al, can you explain the breakdown between the manufacturer and like how the process goes up
Yeah, for
until it's
sure.
being sold? Yeah,
For
please.
sure. Just real quick though,
Yeah,
like it's not a guess either. Like Verity Labs in San Diego were actually they actually had their license taken away from them for gaming the system. Like they for potency, they were saying that things were more potent than they were. They were
right.
saying that they got caught saying that certain products didn't have chemicals when they did. Like all kinds of different things. So ask me the question again.
Yeah, so the breakdown of the manufacturer all the way up to where it's sold to the consumer, there's a whole bunch of levels. And when the
Yeah.
article starts pointing out things, everyone's blaming someone else. Can you just break down how the process goes between all of them and then like
Yeah,
passing
so
the buck?
yeah, so
Yeah,
there's the grower, and then there's usually there's brokers that sell to manufacturers, and
yeah,
then the manufacturers will sell to the brands, and then because the brands are usually just marketing companies, they don't make their own stuff, and then the brands sell to the dispensaries, and sometimes in between those there's brokers as well, so in between the manufacturer and the brand, there could be brokers, and in between the brand and the dispensary, there's either another broker or a distributor. And there's things that could happen along the way. So usually the contamination is with the grow, and um, like especially with the big grows. So there's so some brands have their own grows, and but mostly it's third parties that have these huge grows that are like 100,000 square foot, just for veg or flower, and it's impossible to get a clean grow without using like insecticides and fungicides and herbicides, because it's just such a controlled environment that it's a ripe for infestation, by mold and fungus and bugs. So that's where it usually starts at, and then brokers will they'll and usually brokers that are not licensed either, they'll get that material and put it out to the different manufacturers, and that extract for vapes and different things, and do
right.
pre-rolls, etc. Those brokers will usually have like fake certificates of analysis that they'll use for the product that they're dishing out. So they could say that it's a certain strain or whatever when it really isn't, and that it has these passing grades. That doesn't have any heavy metals or pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, etc. In them when they do. And the manufacturer at that point that buys from the broker doesn't really know what's going on, because he just believes the broker. And testing, when you're moving a lot of product and doing a lot of batches, testing could be a lot of money, and so people don't always test the batches. They'll just say, hey, I have this certificate of analysis, and then so I'm good. And then when that manufacturer sells to a brand or a dispensary, then they just pass on that same certificate of analysis, and it's a
Top it up.
bogus certificate of analysis, right? So
Okay.
so there's chemicals that could be added then, and then there's chemical, when the during the grow, just to protect the grow from being lost, and that hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars being lost, and then when it gets the extractor and the manufacturer, extractor formulator, then more chemicals could be used to extract more or do whatever, and those chemicals could be harmful, or they could use chemicals to try to, if they know that there's pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides in there, or heavy metals, they could use harsh chemicals to try to remove those from there to get a clean test. So it's a, which is all of that's bad, because they because there's chemicals involved, and then when they use those harsh chemicals, the therapeutic value, which is what people are looking for, is lost.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so it's a big deal that way. So chemicals come in, during the grow and during the extraction and formulation, and then also there's, if there is a test and it comes back with contamination, it's okay in the eyes of the regulators, the regulating entities in the different states, including California, and they're encouraged to run it through again, to either remediate it or dilute it. Like, they even say that you can dilute it with other oils to bring the levels of contamination down to acceptable levels.
Come on.
And if it doesn't do that, if it doesn't come down to acceptable levels for through dilution or remediation for flour or for oil, then they're encouraged to put them into edibles, because the regulations aren't as strict. The allowable limits are higher. It's crazy, and that's from the actual regulators saying, "Hey, your stuff is bad. Just dilute it so it's not bad." It's crazy. You know.
So it's not about, oh, we're sorry, we have 26 pesticides and chemicals in this flour. Let's get rid of it. Instead, it's let's find ways to get it in there so the consumer can buy it, so we can make money off the consumer. We don't give two fucks about their health. We don't give two fucks about what they're ingesting. We're just trying to make money and get this product out on the shelves. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And to give you an example of both ends of it, like people with heart and people that lost their soul. When I when I first started the cannabis company, and I was starting to get into the CBD end of it, had a batch, and I was
Mhm.
like, I was struggling. I had just left these extractors that had lost their soul, that were working for me, and they had stolen almost $100,000. And I was sort of hurting for cash at the time, and I had just got a big batch of some material, and I made this oil, and then an employee of mine made a mistake and he gave me the wrong oil, and it was an oil that I had bought by accident, but had put off to the side to destroy. And so I had a contaminated batch, and it was like almost all the money I had was in that batch. It was like $40,000.
Oh my god.
And it was like, devastating. I'm like, okay, I could sell this. Nobody will really know. It'll still work, but I'll know. And and if I do it now, I'll do it again. And I've never
Right.
lost my soul.
Right.
Like since 1987. Why do it now? So I literally poured $40,000. Retail value much more than that. That was the wholesale value. Down the drain. And just ate it. And like struggled for a while and survived and thrived
Right.
afterwards and whatever. So that's what you should do. That's what should be done
Right.
if a batch gets contaminated, even if it's not your fault, or like somebody else made the mistake. It's still contaminated. You still get rid of it, right? So I was part of the Southern California Cannabis Business and Investors Group, the biggest investment group for cannabis in California. And I was at like like a little private party kind of a thing. And these guys were, doing their little backroom dealings. And they got a phone call saying, and this guy I know, he was like, "Hey, did you run it through again? Like they were remediating the oil, trying to pull out contaminated, chemicals, like the contaminated cannabis product, had a bunch of chemicals in it. They were trying to remove through remediation, and it came back positive again, and he's all, well, run it through again, and well, we ran it through 8 times, well, run it through 9, you know,
Mm.
the remediation process is super harmful. The depending on which type you're using, there's harmful chemicals that are involved with that, and then also it strips all the therapeutic value out. So as far as helping you to get better from something,
Right.
it's worthless.
Right.
And those are the kinds of practices that are common. It's not like it happens all the time, and it's encouraged by the regulators. It's
Right.
crazy.
No integrity again. And now I just another shout out to you. It's why you grow your own flower now, and your whole process goes through you, so that no one can taint it. You've not sold out. You've maintained your integrity throughout this whole time. So it's another reason why we're doing this, and it's to get you out there so that people understand that there are still growers and RSO creators that exist that have not sold their soul. So just putting that
Yeah,
out there. Yeah,
and to let people know that the regulators and the big doggies, the big brands have sold their soul, right?
correct.
I mean, like to the point where that lady that I was mentioning that runs the cannabis control, the Department of
Yeah,
Cannabis Control, you know, she is so horrible, right? Because there's zero oversight. There's zero enforcement, like literally zero. They just collect paychecks, and then they got $5 million to fund a campaign. It's called Real California Cannabis, okay, and it's a campaign to promote California cannabis as safe, tested, and regulated by the state to protect consumers. All right. And we're seeing from this article that is a lie completely,
completely.
and they're gearing it towards like boomers, baby boomers, because they're the ones that still believe the media and stuff like that, and they're the most easily swayed. So they have like some you know yuppie ex hippies, whatever, in these things. It's a $5 million campaign, so
Right,
that's $5 million is lining people's pockets, and then they asked for another $8.2 million for their budget for this coming year, like to be added on when they're doing nothing.
right, right. No, and something must get done, and hopefully, like from this LA Times article, it opens the floodgates so that more articles come out. We need whistleblowers. We need even those that have been doing the wrong thing up until this point, stop and do the right thing. Right? Like it's never too late to like step up and do what's right. And getting this out there and exposing it is we need it. People are going to die from this. People are going to smoke enough poisonous cannabis that it's going to suddenly have a report where the first person has died from smoking cannabis. It's not because of the fucking plant. It's because of the poisons and the pesticides that are fucking in it. Right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And here's the thing too. Like we mentioned earlier about like the 2,000 times detectable levels and stuff like that in one in one. That's just one of the chemicals in one of the vape carts, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I had written this down from this actual article, and it said vapes tested from 5 well-known brands, including Stizzy and West Coast Cure Backpack Boys, from 5 well-known brands, had pesticide loads that exceeded federal Environmental Protection Agency risk thresholds for harm from a single exposure. Okay, so that means one, not just like death by 1,000 cuts, where like repeated exposure will cause
Right.
harm down the road. Like just one exposure, just one inhalation can cause serious harm. Like from 5 different brands, they had levels that high, right? Five
That
different
are
major
legal,
brands.
that are in the legal cannabis
Yeah, and are allowed to
dispensaries.
be on dispensary shelves, right? And remember also like Steezy, which is the number one brand in California, and Backpack Boys, they were both caught. They have their own dispensaries, and they were both caught with dispensaries that were unlicensed, running unlicensed dispensaries in California.
Hemingway is so invested in this video, he wanted to hop up and say he's involved. So,
Yeah,
Al, can we
he's a
go in?
client.
He is a client. Hemingway's been on LCBD for 5 years, and he's a mountain lion now. Yes, aren't you? Yeah, no, I was taking care of him, my mom, myself for many years. Can we go into the types of contaminants and a little bit more detail into like the contaminants are linked to cancers and the health risks that people are now inhaling. Can you dive into that?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So first off, like people have to understand that we're talking about things that are inhaled, right? And the things that were tested were inhalable products, like flour, pre rolls, vapes, etc. And so that's direct, like uh, contact, with your lungs, like the chemicals going directly into your lungs, directly into your bloodstream, you know, like no digestion of anything, just directly in there, directly crossing blood-brain barrier, all that stuff through the smoke. And the FDA, the EPA, they consider that smoking more toxic than the actual chemicals, right?
Right.
So they don't really have limits for the chemicals in smoking products. They just have like 0.01 parts per million as the threshold, because they feel that smoking itself is more toxic. So all the thresholds are just guessed at. They're not tested for. The whole entire process is a joke, right?
Right.
But the things that these chemicals are known to be harmful for, they're not a joke, and they are for real. Because they have been tested, and these side effects, or whatever you want to call them, have been proven, through multiple studies and stuff like that. So here's some of them, and this number right here, like this is the pesticide, herbicide, or fungicide, or whatever, insecticide, and this peak right here, that this middle row, that's the levels that above the detectable limits that there were. So some, like this chlorphenapure, 2,060 times the detectable limits, and that was in one of the Backpack Boys carts, or actually in a couple of them. Some of them were 1,600 times. So that's what the EPA is talking about, where you get it's such a high, so much higher, like 2,000 times, to where just one contact with it at that high of a
You're
level can
fucking gone.
cause, yeah, and we're talking, um, difficulty breathing, wheezing, chest tightness, short-term memory loss, release of hydrogen cyanide inside of you, like poison, other toxic gases, and breast, like they found it concentrated in breast milk in animals, that they tested in the lab,
Mm.
and it caused death of offspring. It's crazy. It's nuts. And then you go over to other ones, like the like this pymetrozine. It's an endocrine disruptor. Like it damages your organs, and it's banned in European Union, Canada, Norway, and restricted greatly in the United States on certain food crops. But it's not screened for in California cannabis. And they found, this is one of the ones where this 762 times the amount, that was in steezy,
Mm.
that they found that. And they said, like, hey, we found 762 times the detectable amount of this pymetrozine, and that's what he came, the CEO, of Steezy, came back and said, hey, we're following the strictest guidelines. California has the strictest guidelines. We support their guidelines, and we're following them to a T, and we are protecting consumers. Oh, by the
So,
way, we have pymetrozine in there, and it's 762 times the detectable amount, and it can cause so much damage to you. So screw the consumer, basically.
right. Keep smoking our poison and pay us so we can have your money,
Yeah,
is
and it
basically
just
what they're
goes
saying.
on and on. There's 8 pages of these. There's they did the 36 chemicals that were found in the highest amounts. Besides just like, like being like at the detectable limit or whatever. Even like the old school ones like malathion and all these kind of things that were sprayed back in the day, in the 70s, that were like deemed harmful back then. Like they stopped spraying it because like it's so toxic, and it was for mosquitoes and stuff. And and they're finding that stuff inside of on cannabis. It's crazy.
Pure quote unquote legal weed in dispensaries that have been taken over by corporations are basically selling us poison to smoke for profit, and they're getting away with it. Who's to blame? Like,
Yeah, well,
if,
it's a plethora of people, like everybody, basically,
well, I
uh,
know,
um,
but like,
but yeah, because like it's being allowed by the regulators, so all these other bad actors are in every single facet. You know,
copy that.
it's crazy. So like here's an example of just any chemical being used. Right here, this is a greenhouse, grow house, in California, Siskiyou County, California, and there's these white little spray cans looking things here, and those are foggers, like the foggers that you would use for fog your house, right? For roaches or whatever, like
Oh my
whatever kind of
God. Just
thing.
right on the plant.
And yeah, and they're being sprayed. They're fogging the cannabis plants, and that gets soaked into them, and then you smoke that, or ingest it somehow, and it's crazy. So um, that just shows you like the lack of care, for the consumer. You know,
Right.
it's so crazy. And then this right here shows they did a like walkthrough of a farm, and it shows like aftermarket, like or like black
Jeez.
market kind of insecticides and fungicides and herbicides with Chinese writing on them, and these jugs, and they tested the jugs, and those jugs, some of them had like 10 different uh, insecticides, for fungicides, herbicides inside of them, you know. So it's crazy, and but they're not regulated by California's cannabis control. So
Which
that
is their loophole to get out of
yeah,
fucking getting in trouble.
so they're technically allowable.
And until they update the regulations and the rules for pesticides, it's just free range to use whatever you can.
Yeah, it's giving them the back door, allowing them the back door.
Oh, so fucked up.
Yep.
Also, it's why know your grower. Know who the fuck is growing your flower. Just putting that out there. Like, where are the holistic growers at? Like, if we have anyone watching from any state, can you please like comment below? Just let people know you're out there. I'm looking for Virginia and Tennessee growers. All right. So just hey, that's for my own note. But yeah, I feel so sad because we have, and now when I was filming with you years ago, how many mom and pop companies I interviewed and how genuine they were or are, but don't exist anymore. Like I feel like the whole industry has just been split in two, and now it's just corporate level cannabis. Once they realized there was a profit in this flower, then they jumped in and became like the Walmarts of everybody and pushed everyone out, and then they just kind of sat there and just taking profit, just eating. Yes.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's crazy because like this is like a picture of Backpack Boys. So they he came out with a response. The owner of Backpack Boys,
Yeah.
who's like a hardcore gangbanger, right? And this isn't the owner right here; this is an employee. But the owner came out like on an Instagram post, recording saying, "Hey, those people bought bogus Backpack Boys, aftermarket, stuff, knockoffs, basically, And the guy from Wee Week came back, the Harper guy, said, "Hey, we bought our Backpack Boys carts from Backpack Boys dispensary. You guys sell
Okay.
knockoffs of your own stuff? I mean, it's crazy."
What do you
And
say?
and uh, he didn't say anything, because like that was a recording, and the guy from Weed Week came back in a comment and said that, and there was no response, and then they were also saying that, because there was the two labs that were whistleblowers basically, and they sent all the tainted reports and everything. They're saying, hey, there's tainted product on the shelves, and here they are, you know um, people, other labs and other companies, brands were saying, hey, those guys are trying to discredit other labs so they could, so these labs can make money, and they're like, they're adding in chemicals, they're buying clean product and tainting them themselves, and then but Weed Week and LA Times went to dispensaries and bought the same products off the shelves, and had them tested like a SC Labs and other labs other than those two labs, and got the same exact findings with those same chemicals,
Right.
and they found more products that those other ones didn't, that had 9 or 10 or more chemicals in them as well. So they blasted that out of the water too. And then like they said that they the Cannabis Control, the agency or Department of Cannabis Control,
Right.
when they received the complaints, they did send people out to go buy the product to get tested. But we said earlier they don't have the capability to test, right? So
Right.
the product's still sitting there untested.
It was like, well, yeah, we'll do something, which was nothing, just to seem like they were doing. So there's no their defensive tactics. They're all planning this. Okay, all right, noted. Uh, okay, who in this article, and you go into detail about Josh Swider. He's the lab tester that tested a lot of this. Can you tell us about him?
Yeah, so he's the whistleblower that we were mentioning that had um, that he did a bunch of tests on product that he got off the off the shelves at different dispensaries in California, and they had certificates of analysis that showed clean, and then he
Hmm.
tested the product and it had contamination, you know, and he alerted the regulatory agencies. They did nothing, and then another lab actually came in to do the same thing and tested, and they verified his findings. So
Right.
both of them started sending out notices, and nothing happened. So then they sent out notices to Gavin Newsom, to his staff, and then to the regulatory agencies
Mm.
again. And that was at the end of 2023. Because they did 8 months of testing, and it took all the way to the end of 2023 to where they finally took one product off the shelf.
Just one.
Yeah, just one, and that's all the other remaining on there. And then with that product that they took off the shelves, it it, it was like a certain brand of flour, right,
Uh
and
huh.
like a certain strain, and it was from this one grower, and there was a lab that certified it as chemical free, and the brand sold it, in dispensaries. So the brand that sold it was fined. The lab that verified it as clean was fined, and I think they actually lost their license. And then, but the growers that put the chemicals in there
Right.
in the first
Right.
place, nothing happened to them. No actions were taken against them. And then they have their own brand, and that same strain of flour was tested from their brand, and the same chemicals, the same exact chemicals, were found in that flour. But still, they were not fined or any actions taken against them, even though they grew it and they're selling it. But the other brand that's growing and selling the same exact thing under their name got fined, and the lab that approved it had the license taken away.
And it gets a little stickier because Josh ended up having like some company come in and test his lab, and didn't he get threats and stuff? Like it gets a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
deeper.
So he sent in the more reports, saying, "Hey, like you guys have to do something, like the like nothing's being done, blah 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 blah." So they responded back by with an email a week later saying, "Get ready, we're going to come in and audit your lab." So instead of like going in to audit the other labs and audit the other companies, they came in to audit his lab because he's the whistleblower, right? And then yeah, he was in the midst of doing all of this, he got a phone call saying that he better stop doing what he's doing or he's going to be dealt with. And and it's we're talking cannabis here, we're talking some underworld kind of stuff, so things like that can definitely happen, and they even quoted his wife as saying like, "Hey, I told him he should, get out of the industry,
Right.
just but that's what they want, so more bad actors could come in, just like we said earlier, get the good actors out and the bad actors fill their spots." So he's doing a good thing. He's fighting the good fight,
Right.
and being accused of all kinds of stuff, in the process. But that's what happens. You get arrows in your back for trying to do good. Definitely. Yeah, yeah, it's
You went
amazing.
into the brand integrity responses. Could you read some of their responses to what once exposed? There's some part in the article where they kind of deep dive into, oh, hey, yeah, we're doing everything right and we didn't do anything wrong, but specifically their words. Do you have that available?
Um, let's see. I think I have one right here. Like, we've invested millions of dollars to build our business in compliance with California's laws and regulations. We firmly advocate for the stringent testing mandated by the state to guarantee the safety and excellence of our products, said Logan Wasserman, the CEO of West Coast Cure's parent company, Shield Management Group. That's what I was mentioning earlier about the investment groups and stuff. He contended that responsibility for ensuring product safety was on the labs that declared his vapes pesticide free. So it's not on West Coast Cures to put out good product. It's on the labs to call them out, and they didn't do that. So it's their fault. It's not ours. And to top that off, like the Department of Cannabis Control knows that they have bad product, right? But they issued no public recalls of West Coast Cure products. It's crazy. But check this out. They
Yeah.
did conduct a surprise inspection at its Long Beach facility, which is where we started out at with Movida. In early
Yeah.
May of 2024, just last month, they did an inspection, and they found that they were having excess product in storage containers in the parking lot and shipping containers, and that had no security cameras so that they could be fucked with. And then it was also cited for failing to provide legally required video proving the selection of product samples for lab testing was not rigged. So they're supposed to have cameras
Right.
on everything in a cannabis company brand or whatever. But so when they pull the product to be tested, they're supposed to pull from that certain batch and show that that it's not rigged and hand it over to, chain of command, all this kind of stuff. And they didn't have any of that. They couldn't prove any of it. They were not they didn't have any product pulled from the shelves, even though it was contaminated. But they were given a $3.2 million fine, so a payoff, right?
Right.
So the Department of Cannabis Control and that lady, they got $3.2 million more to play around with.
To still not do anything.
It's just yep, and West Coast Cure could just go on about their day and not not worry about anything. They didn't lose anything from any recalls, any product being pulled, nothing. It's
Not,
crazy.
we're gonna create healthy cannabis. It's, oh, it's so and so's fault, or we did the regulations correct. Please keep buying our stuff. Okay. Just,
Yeah.
you had mentioned 99% of weed and hemp companies outsource and are contaminated. Is that basically what we're talking about here?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. 99% of them, they are just marketing companies, and they white label the product, right?
Okay.
So and they have no idea like how to formulate a product, how to extract a product, anything like that. So that they just say, hey, we want to have this or that, and this white label company says, yeah, we got that, we'll send it out to you. So like we mentioned before, like the mom and pop companies, they had pristine product,
Yep.
like 100% flower derived cannabis oils or whatever it was,
Right.
like it's just super pristine.
Right.
And nowadays, it's these big, huge white label manufacturers. I mentioned in the last video that I have a friend that he has a company in Colorado where he white labels for 5,000 or over five
Yep.
thousand different cannabis companies. So if his stuff is contaminated, he's contaminating 5,000 brands, right? And then those 5,000 brands are on shelves,
Mm-hmm.
all across
Right.
the nation.
Right.
So that's the thing. So this right here, the problem with cannabis trim is one of the big deals in the industry. So
Right.
before it was pristine product, and now they're using just basically cannabis trim, which is like the byproduct of flower. So it's the leaves and stem, all that kind of stuff, which does have some viable material on it,
Right.
but it's not cared for properly, it could get moldy and all this kind of stuff. And then tons of weed these days, they overgrow, because there's too many growers, and the weed sits around too long, it becomes
Moldy.
moldy,
Right.
fungus and all kinds of stuff like that, and they can't sell that to the public. They found ways to remediate it now to make it look pretty again and revive it, which is a whole different topic. Uh, but they could easily extract from that stuff, from the moldy, dirty, weed, and from that dirty, moldy trim. that they extract, and it's a compromised material. It
Right.
has a ton of chemicals in it, and then they go through that remediation process to try to get the pesticide levels down to acceptable levels. For regulations and stuff like that.
Right.
And so people are literally nowadays, like brokers and stuff, are going to growers and asking for dirty trim. Okay, like give us your dirty trim, and like if it has high levels of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, heavy metals, then we want to buy that from you. And there's one guy, he defended the process. He's a broker that
Hmm.
reaches out to things like, hey, give us your dirty weed, and says, hey, I'm doing the industry a service because I'm supporting farmers that otherwise wouldn't get business, and preventing
Right.
preventing cannabis from going to the landfill, even though it should go to the landfill because it's contaminated,
It's
right?
bad. Yeah.
And yeah, it's crazy, because and this so see so this lady right here, she is a grower, like a quality grower in
Right.
Humboldt, and she gets those pleas for old, moldy, or even dirty trim, right? And like she got subject line in her email that said, turn that trash into cash, in the subject line, trim with all levels of pesticides and heavy metals wanted.
It's hidden in plain sight. They're admitting it right there.
Yeah, yeah. So she even says the people who are doing it right get crushed. The bad actors are encouraged and rewarded, and the consumers are poisoned while being told they are safe. I mean, that's it right there. That's the whole article. You know,
Yeah. Right.
it's crazy.
I wanted to also ask you about the part in the article with hazmat suits and the fact that these companies crews are complaining about contaminants, and they're actually having to go into the grows with hazmat suits. The same grows that have the same flower that we're inhaling, right? That we're
Yeah,
ingesting.
yeah, exactly. So they were saying that the grows have gotten from being in the mountains in Humboldt,
Right.
into the farmland, into actual farmland. So, and then the day laborers, the farmers, that would normally be picking kale or whatever,
Right.
are working on cannabis, and they were starting to get like symptoms like diarrhea and all kinds of different things, like headaches and foggy brain and things like that, and they were complaining about like there has to be some kind of insecticides being sprayed on this stuff, because because like our whole crew is sick.
Sick.
And so the regulatory agencies, not so much the Department of Cannabis Control, but the Department of Pesticide, whatever, and those different agencies, agricultural agencies, they send people out to investigate and go onto the
Hmm.
land, and they're required to wear hazmat suits and respirators to go check, and they're also required to get yearly blood analysis for contamination of heavy metals and insecticides, herbicides, and fungicides.
That's
But
what in the
but we're allowed to inhale the stuff,
like
like not just inhale the off gassing of it, but inhale directly the stuff.
or eat it or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like there for or vape it or whatever. Like it's again, it's a war on cannabis. The flower is being tainted. We got to pay attention. Okay, all right. Uh, is there anything else before we dive into um and the key takeaways and kind of what you leading us back to the mountaintop? Is there anything else that we should know about right now before we try to step into the light and create the timeline where we confront this and there's solutions and we know our growers?
Yeah. So just real quick, that
Yeah.
I wanted to show that the flower that I mentioned,
Yeah.
the one that was taken off the shelves, it
Yeah.
was Zope, which is that that's a strain of
So,
flower,
okay.
and a Grizzly Peak Farms, which they don't grow their own stuff, whatever, but they were the ones that were fined, and it had chlorphenapyr, which is that one that causes hormone disruptors and all kinds of stuff. But but it's crazy. And these are some of like Backpack Boys contained chlorphenapure, bifenazate, bifenthrin. Like 26 different chemicals, right? 26 different ones. I mean, it's so crazy. Like not just one of their products either.
Right.
Over here, let's go over this real quick before we go into
Yes.
like the promised land
Yeah.
kind of a thing. So this is like the chemicals that were in the different products. So they tested a bunch of different products from Backpack Boys, and every single one of them failed. And like this one right here, this blue guava gelato had this all these different ones, the chlorphenapure, which we just mentioned, the bifenazate, clofentazine. There's like 11 different ones mentioned, and then it says and 15 more with this Backpack Boys, the lemon cherry gelato. There's 10 mentioned and 16 more. So they both have 26 different chemicals in them, right? And then this one is this many and 15 more, this many and 15 more, this many and one more. I mean, it's just crazy. And you see all the red X's. There's ones with the exclamation points or ones that aren't regulated by the cannabis control, but they're regulated by the tobacco federally, and it had the high amounts. You can see Backpack Boys like failing, more just failing, all Backpack Boys. And there's 26 pages of failure from all these different companies, Circles, Cloud, Crew. Some of them you heard of before, some of them you haven't. And there are a couple of these green check marks, are ones that pass, So Delighted passed, Alien Labs, one of theirs passed. But one of the things to consider is that you can't be brand specific and brand loyal in most cases,
Right.
because like this flavor aid right here is a good example. Okay, so this first one from Flavor Aid didn't pass. It had chemical. Flavor Aid didn't pass. The chloridane, it seems to be the chemical they like the most. Then they had 4 that passed, another one that didn't pass. 2 that passed, 4 that didn't pass. So you're gonna have ones maybe ones that pass and ones that don't. So
Right.
it's a crapshoot, right. And it could be different even with the same strain, but with different batches.
Right.
And so what they are probably doing is they're getting the ones with an X that aren't passing are from one white label manufacturer, and then these ones that are passing are from another white label manufacturer. Because they don't grow their own stuff, they don't extract their own stuff, they don't formulate their own stuff. They buy from a white label manufacturer. Same thing with Stizzy, same thing with West Coast Cures, same thing with Backpack Boys. Backpack Boys doesn't even touch their own stuff. They don't even have a cannabis license. But they have cannabis product and they have cannabis dispensaries in California, but no cannabis license. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, the depth and level of illicit behavior is just unfathomable, from the brands to the labs to the manufacturers, all the way to the regulators, the regulatory agencies, the government. It's crazy. So yeah. But it just keeps on. It goes on. Fog City. All these different ones. You can see this red X after red X. And it just keeps on going.
It's really depressing. It's
Yeah.
so upsetting. And then how do you tell people that are finally getting comfortable with the flower, oh yeah, P.S. Don't smoke any dispensary legal weed. It's all bad for you. Like,
Yeah. After we just told you it was good for you, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So yeah. So it's one of those things too, because the the consumer, they get leery now,
yeah,
and it's like, hey, I'm trying to stay away from this stuff, from these chemicals, and now I'm finding out they're in this weed, like, and I
right.
was going to give it a try, I was giving it a chance, but now screw that, I'm
Yeah,
going to stay away
exactly.
from it,
Exactly.
so and you can't really blame them if they're, because of all, all the stigma and how we were brought up,
Right.
like this is your
Right.
brain on drugs and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
so so yeah, it's doing a huge disservice, and that's one of the things I think that it's almost on purpose,
Yep.
to make as much money as you can, but also sort of discredit and
Right.
eventually destroy the industry,
Right.
and but not completely remove it, just make it pharmaceutical, and
Right.
so big pharma could take over it, and
Right.
like we gave the general public a chance and they blew it. So we're giving it to big pharma now.
Which is why awareness is key. If we can see through the veil, then hopefully we can do something about it. This is a start. It's big. It's a big operation, but we're seeing through it. They're not just getting away with it and then la 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 la. Like, we can band together. Doing this video with you is one of the things. That article is one of the things. The more will come out. But yeah, we are being poisoned through the flower, and it's really concerning. But again, there are key takeaways from this, and there's Al's going to lead us to the mountaintop again to show us kind of where we can have hope again, because we can't just, I mean, there's a timeline where this goes really bad, and there's a timeline where we step up and we do something about it before it gets too bad, because we're going to need to have cannabis growers that are creating healthy, holistic flower for those that smoke the bad cannabis on top of anything else to help heal them, right? Like, it's like going to be a whole thing with healthy and bad cannabis. Anyway, yeah, okay. So key takeaways, Al. Like,
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah, for sure. But so like this report, this from the LA Times and Weed Week, it's like the first time that anything like this has been released. It's like a comprehensive exposure. The pesticide contamination, the product remediation practices. The dilution, lab test results being manipulated. And all within the legal cannabis industry. We're not talking the black market. This is the legal cannabis industry. That's under regulation, and it's like evidence upon evidence. So it's disheartening, but it's also an opportunity, to further expose and force the bad players out. You don't even want them to change behavior. We just want them out, right? And get the good players back in, kind of a thing. And so there's some things that the consumer needs to be taken into consideration. Like be aware, and understand that it is a miracle plant and it can help you immensely. You just need to find the clean sources of it, which is what you have to do with food, water, everything these days anyways. So just add the cannabis onto that, and you have to do a little bit more due diligence, but the reward that you can get once you find that pristine product, then it's indescribable, like the benefit that you could reap from it. So unfortunately, even though they try to say it's the other way around, the legal cannabis market is most often worse than the black market. So you need to be very, very careful, right? And like 99% of the hemp companies and cannabis companies out there, as Megan mentioned earlier, they white label their products from third-party brokers or manufacturers, and there's zero quality control other than trusting, like it's good. All right. That's about it. They don't, because they don't do any third party testing. So it's up to the consumer to get educated. Find the right questions to ask. Like understand why you're asking certain questions. Don't just follow somebody else just because they asked that question and you don't know why. I understand. The questions that you are asking. Find those right questions to ask. Do your research, and then find the trusted source. Because they are out there in the legal market. They're out there. They're out there more so in the black market, I feel. But in the legal market, there are these unicorns, in each state, that were like they're in it, because of their heart, and they have
like you.
And they have the resources to weather the storm, and they do things correctly. They know what correct is, because like a lot of people don't even know what that means, when it comes to the pure and clean product. So, but they understand it, and they deliver it, but in smaller quantities. So they're not in every dispensary; they're only in certain ones. So you need to find out that company, then find out where their stuff is sold, and then check on them, periodically, because people do lose their soul down the road, as they start to make more money or whatever, or get more investors, or something happens along the way where people can lose their soul. So, so do not blindly trust lab results or brand reputations. choose safety over convenience, and brand loyalty. So again, do your due diligence,
Right.
and like we said, stick with them and vote with your dollars.
Right.
Because that's what people, that's what, especially corporations, what they listen to. When they start making less money, they will change their tune if they have to.
Right.
Or they'll get out of the industry saying, screw
Right.
that. We'll go make our money somewhere else where we can, be deceitful and not be messed with.
Totally. Speaking of local growers, can you explain why organic farming practices are important for the farmers, the growers, and the consumer? Like it is important. Why? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, um, like I started, growing because of this kind of a thing right here, and I have relationships with a bunch of really awesome farms, but I started growing just so we could have like that full oversight. So the so can you ask that one more time?
Absolutely. So the if you could explain the organic farming practices and why they're so
Yeah,
important to farmers, growers, and consumers. Yeah.
yeah. So the organic farming practices they're important basically for health reasons, but the growers out there, they don't necessarily understand that, and the consumers, some of them don't understand it either. But the growers, the extractors, formulators, what I see in the industry is they don't understand the health part of it
Right.
as much. They equate the high with the health, and they're two separate things. The amount that you get high has nothing to do with the health of the product and the healing or therapeutic properties of the product. So when I talk to other growers, manufacturers, distributors, extractors, etc., in the industry, and ask them about whether they grow organically or they use synthetics, chemicals,
Right.
then they say, a lot of them will say, well, we use synthetics because we tried doing organic in the past, but our yield wasn't as good. Like we had much less of a yield. It was harder to deal with pests. It was much more work. All these different things, but they never mentioned the health of the product,
Right.
right? So, which is everything. So you're not growing the product organically to do less work. You're not doing it to have growing organically to have a bigger yield, which you can do. But you're growing it because it's healthier. Because using those chemicals can do great amounts of harm to the land if you're
Right.
growing, in soil, and then to the consumer that's actually, inhaling the product. And then, like we said, the workers too that come in contact with the
Right.
with the the plants on a daily basis. They can, like we said earlier, that that crew had diarrhea and brain fog and headaches and all that kind of stuff too. So that it could affect people all along the way. So, but and if you have organic practices, that will not happen. You know, so it's all so the organic. It's not about the yield. It's about the health of the product and being able to deliver a product to consumers that will actually benefit them and not harm them. Right.
Love
So,
that.
so
Yeah.
that's
Perfect.
the main gist behind it. So getting the farmers to understand that it's not about the yield and it's about the
Right.
health, and then the consumers to understand that they need to do their due diligence to
Correct.
find that pure and pristine company that grows
Right.
correctly. And
It's a team effort.
understands.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to also jump into testimonials, some of the testimonials that you get on a daily basis, and basically the results that you're supposed to get with pure flower and RSO. Can we jump into some of the testimonials of people that have gone through cancer, have are recovering from scenarios that have actually like reached out and said, "Hey, I'm doing better because of this," versus all the poison type scenarios that we've been discussing for the last hour and 23 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Um, there's everything from anxiety to pain to, like you said, cancer and things like that. Like we had a couple of women that were on anxiety meds since they were 5 years old, right? and
Sheesh.
and they were both in their 40s when I met them, and I met them almost the same amount at the same time. They were both from Orange County, and they were by this time on several medications, plus drinking the wine at night and everything,
Right.
and the one of them had like she was like a trophy wife, and the husband was
Mhm.
just trying to medicate her, like like go about like keep quiet
Yeah.
over there in the corner, whatever, and um, they took the stuff, the cannabis products, and because for my recommendation, and one of them was super hesitant. She was a lawyer, and super straight laced, and it took her a while to take it. Like she started off with one drop from a tincture, and then finally moved up. But several years later, she's still on it. Seven years later to be exact.
Nice.
And then the other one was a fitness competitor, like a professional fitness competitor, and she had like pain and stuff like that, but she also had the anxiety and the different things. And she didn't believe in cannabis products or CBD products or anything. And she said they were just bogus. And it was like just like a multivitamin that that's just they sell it, but nothing ever happens, right?
Right.
And so she was like the wife of somebody that was going to be carrying our products, and so he wanted her to take it, and because she was the most skeptical, so I gave her the protocol and said, take it, you need to take it like in these amounts, like enough to get a beneficial result, and take it for at least a month, right? Like religiously, like day in and day out, be patient, persistent, consistent with your efforts. And
Right.
after a week, after a week, she's like, I don't feel anything. I'm gonna just keep on it. And then, like on day 13, she sent me a text message saying it's working, and she goes, and I talked to her later on. She goes, I was at Knott's Berry Farm, or actually at Soak City, which is like the water park across the street from Knott's Berry Farm, and I was there with like over a dozen teenage girls, and I was the only mom. And the girls asked me, said, hey, after the water park, can we go to Knott's Berry Farm and mess around? And she goes, sure, why not? And then she looked at herself after saying that and said, who is this woman? She goes, usually I would be like, and we need to get the hell out of this water park. I need to get home and get a glass of wine in my system, like this kind of
Right.
thing. But I was like handling it, having fun with the girls. Yeah, sure, no problem. Let's go have more fun. And
Love
like
it.
that's not me, So I knew something was going on, you know. And there's tons of things, like we have like police officers that were in the field with ankle problems and neck problems and different things, from having to do reports and all these precarious situations and jumping over fences, chasing bad guys, and um, like tens of thousands of dollars on physical therapists and even surgeries and all kinds of stuff. And like this one in particular in Riverside, California, he had this crazy grinding in his neck, and just I could hear it, feel it, and everything. And his life was just miserable. He's retired, and he's like, I'll give this stuff a shot. And like 3 days later, he's like at 3 days, and he was like 20 years of pain and suffering. But 3 days after being on the cannabis products, he sent me a message, an email saying, "Are you effing kidding me?" Like I've tried everything, and even now I do Advil and I do prescription pain meds, and nothing helps. And after only 3 days, I feel great, and I don't feel the grinding anymore,
Right.
and the pain's gone. Like,
Right.
because he actually felt like he could feel the bones grinding, not just hurting, but like I even hear them, and
Ugh.
that went away. Like, and then he's like, "What the hell?" So there's so many things. Like even myself with my glaucoma,
Right.
like getting my vision back, and crushing a lifetime of migraines and chronic pain.
Right.
We have over 150 5-star reviews just on our website alone, and then a
Right.
ton of case studies. Hundreds and hundreds of
Yes.
case studies.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Al's also helped my mom after two back surgeries in a very rare disease. I also take it. I take it before events, before filming, all of the things. It's part of the routine. It's like you said, it's a essential nutrient. Like this should be in our bodies, regardless of if you have any type of condition or not. This is a healthy way to continue to be healthy and stay healthy. Al, what do you have any final advice before we wrap this up?
Yeah, like we said, just do your due diligence, with finding a pure source and stick with them.
Right.
And also, if you have a condition that you need to overcome, try to find a cannabis caregiver, that could help you with which product to take, with dosing, et cetera, because all of that matters, right? Because we're doing this right this episode just to help people to understand what's going on, but also encourage people to continue,
Right.
on with their search to overcome and manage the condition that they have, right?
Right.
So find that pristine source, find a cannabis caregiver. The cannabis caregiver will most likely have a pristine source that they could provide you with,
Right.
because that's what that's their job basically.
Right.
But also knowing how much to take to get the results that you're looking for
Makes
is
sense.
key. So finding the clean material and understanding how much to take. So don't give up hope, and keep fighting the good fight, and you can overcome the condition that you have and manage it for the long haul, and live the life that you're meant to live.
Absolutely agree. Show us what you have pulled up here. These are hundreds of your videos that you have done. Can you give us some more insight into that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, there's some testimonials here from some people. We have things on like anxiety, chronic pain, stress, how to dose the full extract cannabis oils,
Yeah.
stuff for migraines, the entire Rick Simpson protocol,
Right.
some other like cannabis growers. Like this guy, he has Eden in Colorado. Has like one of the most pristine cannabis grows in the nation, right?
Wow.
And he helps other people to clean their soil so they could have organic certified farms and stuff like that. The Rick Simpson protocol video right here has over 30,000 views. So
That's
it is a topic that has great interest. And
right.
so with great interest, there's people that want to make money off of that. So watch these videos. Go to the My Fit Life channel. It's youtube.com/MyFitLife, and check out the videos, and uh, you'll get encouraged to keep fighting the good fight.
That is Al. Al has maintained his integrity through all of this, and so if you're looking for pure RSO, if you're looking for a way to heal your body and to get information, obviously reach out to him. He does free consultations. If you have questions, this page right here has videos that will help you educate yourself. It's all right there. He's available all the time. If you have questions, again, like this is Al has a bigger mission here than just profit. And that's one of the things I respect, and one of the reasons why I have been filming him for this long. One of the reasons why I want to be able to be a part of this show with him is to continue to get the truth out there and to reach out to others that are trying to find the truth so that we can all band together and really just protect this plant, this beautiful, magical plant. Let's see. That's everything on my end now.
Awesome, very good. This is a really awesome episode, and
Yeah.
thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Al. I appreciate you.
Awesome. So that concludes this episode of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. Be sure to leave any questions or comments below and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy this type of content. Reach out to support@myfitlife.net or schedule a complimentary call if you have any questions about RSO or FICO, like how to take it or where to get it. And note, we are currently working with people within the United States only right now. This is Al Morenton.
And Megan Hall?
And we are the hosts of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. I hope you have a beautiful day. Peace.